When passion meets tradition, when history collides with the future, that's where the magic of sports truly lives. Before we dive into today's earth-shattering exclusive report, take a moment to join our hockey community by hitting that subscribe button. The journey we're about to take together through the halls of hockey history deserves your attention. I was thinking this morning about what makes sports fandom so powerful. It's not just the wins and losses. It's the emotional investment we make in players who become more than athletes. They become symbols of our cities, carriers of our dreams, and sometimes breakers of our hearts. The empire crumbles. Toronto's Core 4 facing dramatic dissolution. The foundations are trembling beneath hockey's most valuable franchise. Multiple high-level sources within the Toronto Maple Leafs organization have exclusively confirmed to us that the team's celebrated Core 4, the backbone of the franchise for nearly a decade, is on the verge of a dramatic and potentially complete dissolution. This isn't speculation, this is reality. The Toronto Maple Leafs, carrying the weight of a 58-year Stanley Cup drought, are preparing for their most consequential offseason since the Brendan Shanahan-led rebuild began in June 2014. The team that commands the highest ticket prices in the NHL, that consistently sells out every game, regardless of performance, now faces an identity crisis that could reshape the franchise for the next decade. At the epicenter of this seismic shift, Mitch Marner, the homegrown talent whose contract situation has become the flashpoint for the organization's future direction. The $14 million question, Marner's contract demands revealed our sources, have confirmed what has only been whispered in NHL circles. Mitch Marner's camp, led by notoriously tough negotiator Darren Ferris, is seeking a contract that would exceed $14 million per season, a figure that would make him one of the highest-paid players in NHL history and create potentially insurmountable salary cap challenges for Toronto. The 27-year-old playmaking wizard, approaching 100 points for the third consecutive season, finds himself at the negotiating table with leverage that few Toronto players have ever possessed. Since entering the league in 2016, only 4 players, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Nathan MacKinnon, and Nikita Kucherov, have produced more points than Marner. Elite company that justifies elite compensation. But the implications extend far beyond Marner. Sources deep within the organization confirm that general manager Brad Treliving now views the retention of the entire Core 4 as mathematically impossible under the salary cap constraints. The equation simply doesn't compute, revealed one front office executive speaking on condition of anonymity. You can't allocate over 50% of your cap space to 4 players and build a championship roster in today's NHL. Something has to give. The emotional cost, Marner's complex relationship with Toronto. For Marner, the decision transcends dollars and cents. Born just 30 minutes from Scotiabank Arena in Thornhill, Ontario, he grew up idolizing the blue and white, drawing Maple Leafs in school notebooks, dreaming of one day lifting the Stanley Cup for his hometown team. That dream, while financially lucrative, has come with a psychological toll few could have anticipated. Those close to Marner reveal a complex relationship between the player and segments of the fan base. The mounting criticism following playoff eliminations, particularly after being neutralized against Montreal in 2021 and Tampa Bay in 2022, has created what one associate describes as an unhealed wound. Mitch would never say this publicly, but he remembers the boos, the criticism, the disproportionate blame placed on his shoulders, said a source with direct knowledge of the player's thinking. In hockey, memory is long. This psychological component adds a dimension to negotiations that transcends traditional market valuations. For some players, the comfort of home provides incentive to accept a hometown discount. For others, past treatment becomes motivation to seek maximum value elsewhere. The domino effect. Tavares and the cascading crisis. The Marner situation has created a domino effect throughout the organization, most notably impacting team captain John Tavares. At 34, Tavares finds himself in contract limbo, with sources confirming that negotiations have stalled while the team prioritizes Marner's situation. The numbers being presented to Tavares represent a stark reality check for the veteran. Initial. Discussions have centered around a dramatic pay reduction, from his current $11 million annually to a range between $6 and $7 million per season, nearly a 50% cut. For comparison, Tampa Bay's Steven Stamkos, also 34 with 2 Stanley Cups on his resume, received $8.5 million annually in a state without income tax. "John understands the business side," said one source close to the Tavares camp. "But there's also the human element. This is a player who left money on the table to come home in 2018. He's established his family here, built deep community ties. Those considerations matter." The situation is further complicated by emerging young talent Matthew Knees, whose future contract needs must be factored into Toronto's long-term financial planning. The mathematical reality is brutal. Toronto cannot retain Marner at $14 million, re-sign Tavares at a significant value, and secure Knies long-term without other major roster sacrifices. The critical crossroads. 2 paths. Diverge league sources indicate Toronto now faces 2 distinct paths forward, with playoff performance likely to determine which route they take. Path 1. The Tampa Bay model. Should Toronto finally break through with playoff success this season, pressure will mount to keep the core intact at almost any cost. The Tampa Bay Lightning precedent, retaining their stars even at the expense of depth, ultimately rewarded with back-to-back Stanley Cups, provides a tempting blueprint. If they make the conference finals or beyond, the narrative changes overnight, noted one NHL executive. Suddenly, they're not playoff underachievers. They're a team that's figured it out and needs continuity. Path 2. The painful reset. Should Toronto suffer another early playoff exit, sources indicate Treliving has already developed a contingency plan for a dramatic roster overhaul. This would likely begin with allowing Marner to depart, using the $14 million in cap space to pursue multiple assets, particularly elite defensive help, an area of persistent weakness. The Philadelphia model from the early 2010s serves as a cautionary tale, warned one team source. The Flyers tried maintaining their core too long, resisting necessary rebuilding. The result was a decade of mediocrity. The bidding war begins. Marner's market takes shape while Toronto deliberates. Rival general managers have already begun strategic planning. Sources confirm 3 teams have emerged as frontrunners in a potential Marner sweepstakes. Chicago Blackhawks. With Connor Bedard entering his prime development years, GM Kyle Davidson views Marner as the perfect complement to accelerate there, then rebuild. Chicago's substantial cap space allows them to potentially offer Marner $14+ million without significant roster sacrifices. Utah Hockey Club. As the NHL's newest franchise seeks to establish identity and credibility, signing a marquee talent like Marner would make an immediate statement. Owner Ryan Smith has reportedly authorized whatever it takes to land a franchise-defining star. Seattle Kraken. With the league's most cap flexibility entering the offseason, GM Ron Francis has identified playmaking as their most significant roster deficiency. Internal models project Marner could boost their power play efficiency by as much as 12%. The human cost, beyond the numbers lost in the financial calculations, is the human element of these decisions. For Marner, leaving Toronto would mean abandoning the only NHL home he's ever known, the team whose logo adorned his childhood bedroom wall. For Tavares, potentially ending his career away from home would represent a poignant conclusion to what was supposed to be a fairy tale homecoming. These aren't just assets on a spreadsheet, reflected one team source. They're people who've put blood, sweat, and tears into this organization. The emotional weight of these decisions is immense. For a fan base that has endured nearly 6 decades of disappointment, the potential dismantling of the core 4 represents yet another painful chapter. The team that once promised to deliver a dynasty now faces the prospect of another reset, another period of uncertainty, another test of the most resilient fan base in professional sports. The clock is ticking. The decisions made in the coming months will echo through Leafs Nation for years, perhaps decades to come. As one front office executive put it, some franchises get turning points. The Leafs are facing a breaking point. What's your take, Leafs Nation? Should Toronto pay whatever it takes to keep Mitch Marner in blue and white? Or is it time to make the painful decision to let their homegrown star walk away? The $14 million question could determine the next decade of Maple Leafs hockey. Drop your thoughts in the comments below on whether keeping the core four together is worth sacrificing roster depth.